Now, from the Pope John Paul II Cultural Center in Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome. Thank you all. Welcome to the World Over Live. We've got a great crowd tonight. It's a bittersweet night. Can you believe it's been 5 years since Hurricane Katrina bore down on the Gulf Coast? Former presidential advisor, pundit, and New Orleans resident Mary Matalin joins us to talk about the current state of her adopted home city and her recent conversion to Catholicism. Later, Dr. Walid Phares of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies returns to the show to discuss the mosque near Ground Zero controversy and whether religious freedom is being jeopardized by the growing opposition. And last Friday, Catholic League President Bill Donohue talked to us about the Mother Teresa rally he called outside the Empire State Building in New York this week. Well, we covered it, and we'll bring you some highlights. If you'd like to join in the program, and why not, we're at 1-800-221-9460 in the U.S. and internationally 205-271-2980, or drop us an email, worldover@EWTN.com. Let's jump right in. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. From India to Albania and around the world, Blessed Mother Teresa was remembered on Thursday, the 100th anniversary of her birth. The missionaries of charity were among those gathered in Calcutta on Thursday for a mass marking the occasion. School children, charity workers, and pilgrims from across the globe streamed past Mother Teresa's marble tomb, decorated with flowers and candles for the occasion. In her native Albania, thousands filled the courtyard of the cathedral named in Mother Teresa's honor. Pope Benedict described the holy nun as an exemplary model of Christian virtue. And despite the best efforts of Catholic League President Bill Donohue, Mother Teresa was not honored with colored lights at the Empire State Building. But thousands were on hand, nonetheless, for the rally in support of Blessed Teresa. Our World Over cameras were there. We'll bring you highlights at the end of the show, including what Bill Donohue and comedian Jackie Mason had to say. Stay tuned for that. It was quite an event. And also in New York, as the controversy surrounding the building of a mosque near Ground Zero continues to grow, a new PBS News poll shows an overwhelming majority of Americans are against the idea. 3 in 4 Americans, 72% of those polled, say it's not appropriate to build a mosque near Ground Zero. Meanwhile, New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan and Governor David Paterson met to discuss the mosque. Both are offering to mediate an amicable solution. A spokesman for the governor said their meeting was very productive and they will continue to do everything in their power to facilitate and promote a positive public dialogue that unites New Yorkers. More about the mosque and those behind its development later in the program. And pro-life groups are lauding Monday's court injunction temporarily blocking the federal funding of embryonic stem cell research. Under a directive signed by President Obama, the National Institutes of Health last year issued new guidelines expanding embryonic stem cell research. Now, U.S. District Judge Royce Lamberth has ruled that the guidelines likely violate a 1996 law known as the Dickey-Wicker Amendment. That bill bars the federal funding of any research that destroys human embryos. Cardinal Daniel DiNardo, chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Pro-Life Committee, said the decision is a welcome victory for common sense and sound medical ethics. The ruling affects 22 NIH research projects worth $54 million. And hope abounds in Chile, as 33 miners feared dead after a mine collapse have been found alive, well, and in good spirits. After more than 17 days in silence, first contact was made with the trapped miners earlier this week. They took refuge in the mine's emergency shelter. According to CNN, some of the first provisions the miners asked for were a crucifix and statues of a few saints. They've since dedicated the entire shelter as a shrine. Meanwhile, above ground, a half a mile up, the families are keeping vigil. The miners will be down there for quite a while. Rescuers estimate it could take as long as 4 months around Christmas time before they could be extracted. Keep those men in your prayers. And on a much grimmer note, the perils of illegal immigration turned horrific this week as the bodies of 58 men and 14 women were found in the town of San Fernando, Mexico, about 100 miles south of Brownsville, Texas. The apparent lone survivor of the massacre, an Ecuadorian, told authorities that the Central and South American migrants were abducted and killed by an organized crime gang known as the Zetas. The Zetas deal primarily in drugs, but also exploit migrants heading north. For decades, migrants running the gauntlet up through Mexico in hopes of reaching the United States have faced extortion, kidnapping, and theft. Mexico's chief security spokesman said it appeared the migrants were slain after refusing to help the gang smuggle drugs. Authorities and diplomats began the sad task on Thursday of identifying the 72 Central and South American migrants and contacting their families. And the U.S. Bishops' Conference's beleaguered anti-poverty program is facing a critical test of support this week. Catholic World News is reporting that all U.S. bishops are being asked to respond to a confidential document entitled The Review and Renewal of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. The document was prepared in response to bishops' concerns that the CCHD had strayed from its mission and become too closely involved with radical political movements. For years, the CCHD defiantly supported the disgraced community organization ACORN, despite warnings from watchdog groups. And more recently, it was revealed that CCHD funneled Catholic monies to pro-abortion and pro-gay rights groups across the country. According to the Catholic World News report, many bishops are unsatisfied with the CCHD document. Some grantees fear that sweeping changes could be coming at the Bishops' annual November meeting. We'll be sure to stay on this story for you. And a pro-life beacon in New York was laid to rest this week. Longtime Nassau County District Attorney and gubernatorial candidate Dennis Dillon died at his Rockville Center home after a long battle with lymphoma. He was 76. Monsignor Robert Brennan, who led the funeral mass at St. Agnes Cathedral, said Dillon, quote, wanted to know God and his truth. Integrity was the best word to describe him. Dillon's integrity shone clear through his political life. In 1986, he ran for governor on the New York State Right to Life Party ticket in opposition of fellow Catholic Democrat Governor Mario Cuomo. Cuomo at the time was the nation's most prominent pro-abortion Catholic apologist. May Dennis Dillon rest in peace. And finally, British singing sensation Susan Boyle said she dreamed a dream that has now come true. The unlikely pop star said this week she was honored by the opportunity to perform during the Holy Father's visit to Britain next month. The former parish choir singer, who shot to global fame after appearing on TV's Britain's Got Talent, will now sing hymns with an 800-strong choir behind her at the open-air Mass in Glasgow's Bella Houston Park. Here's what Subo had to say about her honor and her Catholic faith.
They asked me, and I was very, very happy to be able to do it, and also very humble. It's something I've always wanted to do for a while. It's been one of my biggest dreams. I'm very happy it's come true at last. Faith is the backbone of my life, and I can't do anything without it. It's very important in my life.
And be sure to join EWTN as we bring you live coverage of Pope Benedict's visit to the United Kingdom beginning September 16th. This is going to be an incredible trip, and we won't let you miss a moment of it, we promise. God's honor. And don't forget, starting next week, September 2nd, the world over will premiere in a new night, on a new night.
Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
See, they've been listening. Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Not everybody hates my little mentions. I've got to prepare you. Our re-airs will remain the same. This will give many of you a chance to watch us live. And though the night is new, we'll bring you the same great shows you've come to expect and the wonderful guests. And if you're traveling to D.C., as these good folks were and are, make sure you drop us a line. Send us an email, worldoverdc@yahoo.com. We'll reserve a place for you to watch the show live. The World Over Live moves to Thursday night starting in September. When we return, presidential advisor and contributor Mary Matalin joins us. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
The images are now etched in our national consciousness. On August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina, a powerful Category 4 hurricane, slid to the east of the city of New Orleans. For those evacuees glued to televisions and for the thousands that remained behind, the worst seemed to be over. Then levees in Lakeview, Gentilly, and the St. Bernard areas of New Orleans gave way. The deluge began.
They're trying to wash us away. They're trying to wash us away.
Still hard to watch that. It's been 5 years since Hurricane Katrina left its mark on the Gulf Coast and my hometown of New Orleans. Tonight we remember and look to the future. Joining us to share her views on the recovery and a few other matters is former presidential advisor, CNN political contributor, editor-in-chief of Threshold Editions, and a New Orleans resident, Mary Matalin. Mary, thanks for being here. I wish I were there with you.
Raymond, I wish you were too. We've had good times here together, and we will in the future. Thank you for having me on to talk about this historic commemoration and this historic turning point.
Now, Mary, tell me, what makes a nice Illinois girl pick up from Washington, D.C. and move her family to New Orleans post-Katrina? You didn't move there till 2008. Why did you do it?
Early 2008, it was midway to the 5-year mark, and there's no other city like this in America. I've traveled all over the world. I don't know many other cities like this in the world, and the people are so unique, and it is a particularly faith-filled and faithful city, and I wanted my kids to grow up here, and my husband and I wanted to help, but never did I know we would be so blessed and see so much grace and resilience in the people who made this recovery possible. And listening to the opening contemporaneous comments about the devastation, it's really remarkable how far New Orleans has come. Also, St. Bernard Parish, which really got hit worse, is having a slower recovery with less resources and certainly no attention. I was there this morning with Mrs. Bush, Laura Bush, at the Chalmette High School, and Doris Fouché, who's brought back, the superintendent of St. Bernard Parish has brought back those schools. Every single one of those schools was absolutely devastated or damaged, and it be under 15 feet of water. So it's a remarkable story of resilience and faith, and there's something really heartening about it.
Is that what people are missing most in these remembrances that we're seeing on television, this commemoration of the 5-year anniversary of Katrina? Is it that tenacity and faith of the people? Have we not seen enough of that?
You know, I do think what I've been able to see, because we've been attending many of these, I don't want to call them celebrations, they're commemorations, reflections. They see it and they feel it when they're here, but to really live through it and watch the hope that everybody has for the future, and this is really sort of recent. 2.5 years ago, people were teetering, didn't know if it was going to be the case, but I'll take St. Bernard Parish again. That high school I was at today has been named for the 2nd year in a row as the one of the best high schools in the country by U.S. News and World Report. Its fourth graders led the state in math scores. The same story about education reform can be told in New Orleans, leading the nation. With our new mayor, Mitch Landrieu, we have hospitals that were on hold for 4 years going up. We have a new police chief. Crime is going down. It's just an urban renewal innovation epicenter, and you can feel it. You can feel it in the people. I hope what people can take away watching this from the outside is that we have not lost our culture. We have not lost what New Orleans is, what St. Bernard's Parish is. It's really what is here and recovering better than it was before is still the essence of what preceded it. And I hope that comes through. It's not to say there isn't plenty of work left to do, but that is, the essence is still here, and it's remarkable. And I would be remiss if I didn't say to all of America and really around the world, wherever your show is, the people here were buoyed by the sheer volume of volunteers that came down here and their commitment to standing the region back up. It's just people coming together in love and with purpose that's something beautiful to behold.
Mary, I'm going to ask you a question that was often asked of me when I lived in New Orleans. We have a city that is below sea level. The federal government just spent $15 billion trying to bring it up to some level of safety. But even in the New York Times this week, they admitted it really isn't enough to protect New Orleans from one of these monster storms. Is it a good investment to continue bringing the Army Corps of Engineers in to refortify a city that slowly is sinking and ever more subject to these sorts of storms in the future?
You know, I'm sure, Raymond, I'm sure you have the same fury when you get those kinds of questions that I'm feeling, but I know you know that's not true. First of all, the city isn't below sea level. Portions of it are, but this is not a natural disaster. This was a man-made disaster. Should the United States of America be able to provide levees to its most historic, unique city, the way the Dutch or any number of countries that are not as advanced as we are, and I'm not saying that about the Dutch necessarily, but yes, the technology exists. This was shoddy, man-made problem here. This was not an act of God. The storm was the hand of God, but this, because of man's miscalculations and malfeasance in the shoddy levee building, and also the coastal erosion, the extraction of resources from this state without rebuilding, so there was a stronger stopping. This is a Cat 3 by the time it hit that should have been stopped out there by barrier islands if the coast hadn't been eroded by man that is, who didn't repair it in the way they said they would. So this is, of course, it's a wonderful investment, and anybody who thinks otherwise has never spent a nanosecond here, and I think that's a really immoral question. Why? It's not like we're on beachfront property. These ports here, we have 5 of the biggest ports in the country. 30% of our agriculture comes up and down these working ports. 40% of our energy, 40% of our seafood. This is why New Orleans was the capital city that it was initially, because of all the jobs, the industry, and the benefit that it provided for the rest of the country. It's a national treasure. It's a national economic necessity that we do this the way we are certainly capable of doing. It's hard to believe we can put men on the moon, to use that overused cliche, and we can't apply a little pedestrian engineering to get the levees right. And it's not, I will say again, we're not under sea level. So some portions of the city are, but certainly the majority isn't.
Yeah, no, Mary, I always tell people if they have any doubts, go spend a week in New Orleans, taste it, listen to it, dance with it. You'll quickly realize how important it is, not only to the region, but to the country and the world. I want to move on. The president is appearing at his own commemoration on Sunday. I know you're going to be headlining a different one, which I want to talk about in a second. Why did the president choose, do you think, to appear at Xavier University, the premier black Catholic university in the country?
I don't work for this administration, and chances are I never would, and that they would little seek my advice. We had been hoping, I suppose, that he would join our commemoration, but when Norman Francis is an astounding, remarkable man. Xavier's an incredible institution, one of the first and earliest and strongest, fortifying the city and bringing people back. So I'm delighted that he is coming and appreciating us. I understand the issue of its being Catholic and his being pro-choice, but I'm a light the candle person, not curse the darkness. Whenever we get a chance to talk about life and the morality of life, and those who are not pro-life have to defend their immoral position, I think that just keeps bringing more understanding to the atrocity of abortion.
Mm-hmm. Mary, I want to read you something that you wrote. This is in your fantastic book, Letters to My Daughter. You said, "I believe in my heart of hearts that a life without faith is unanchored and unfulfilling. Without it, you're just wandering in the desert. You experience deeply that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and the singing is damn good." Tell people quickly, and I know you're pressed for time. You converted recently to the Catholic Church, came into the church in Easter. What was it? Was it one moment or a series of events that led you to this final coming home?
I think every Catholic understands the lifelong nature of the journey. I think the moment of access for me was through our good friend, Monsignor Christopher Nolte, who's a truly holy man, and he just he made the light shine for me. But it was a natural, it just felt natural, feels natural. I feel blessed every day and learn more every day thanks to his good teachings and yours and others, and study and grace and the hand of God. You know, Christopher Nolte's mother, Monsignor's mother, said he's just got God all up inside him, and he exudes it, he conveys it, he's a light, and he's an attraction, and every Catholic will understand this. When you hear it, you feel it.
Yep. Mary, I think you're holding out on me. It was James, your husband, that really was the cause of your conversion. Admit it. The cradled Catholic James, right?
No, he is a cradle Catholic, an altar boy, but one of the many reasons I love him is that in 17 years of marriage and a big Catholic family, he never pressed me. I would ask him questions all the time about it, and he, in sort of an intellectual, theologically, never pressed me. But the night that Monsignor married us, James was weeping, and our children were weeping, and his sisters were weeping, and I only learned after the fact how much it meant to the family that I came into the church. But they never said anything in 20 years. So I love them all, and I love my husband, and he's a very he's a good Catholic. He's a deep Catholic. He's a smart Catholic.
Well, you are too. Final question, Mary. You all are headlining a commemoration with the mayor this weekend in New Orleans. What is that? This is a public event, right?
It's public for first come, first serve. It'll be start out at the cathedral. Our own archbishop's overseeing an interfaith service at late in the afternoon, or actually 1:30, I should say, showing the diversity and the love and the coming together of the many religions in this city in our beautiful cathedral. And then that night, for the first, it'll be all of the heritage that the city has that's so unique to it, from its music and its food and we'll be remembering. But something unique is happening, Raymond. I hope you can see this. The 26 Indian chiefs are coming together, dressing up for the first time in history. They're all going to come, as well as John Boutte and some other great, wonderful acts. And we'll be lighting candles and remembering those we lost, and acknowledging our resilience, and also acknowledging this. We're determined to go forward and not just rebuild, but to create the city we want to be and can be.
Mary, thank you so much for being with us and for all you're doing. Mary has a weekend show, Both Sides Now, on radio across the country, which she hosts with Ariana Huffington. So be listening for that in your local market. Now, turning gears now and changing to a different subject, the proposed mosque near Ground Zero in New York has dominated the headlines this week. To put it in perspective, is an expert on global jihad and Middle Eastern affairs. He's the director of the Future Terrorism Project and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. His most recent book is The Confrontation: Winning the War Against Future Jihad. Would you welcome Dr. Walid Phares? Thanks for being back here. Thank you. Pleasure to have you. Doctor, I think many people simply don't understand the title and name of this proposed mosque is Cordoba House. Now, I'm half Spanish, so I understand Cordoba, Spain. But what does that mean to the Islamic world when they hear Cordoba?
Look, you have Spanish, I'm Middle Easterner, and I understand what that means in Arabic. Cordoba, it meant before that the city of Qurtuba, which was the capital of the Umayyad Islamic Empire of Spain. So if there is a name, Initiative of Cordoba, it means Initiative of Qurtuba. It must mean, basically, the return of the Islamic Empire, but this time not to Spain, to the United States.
And this is where the caliphate was during that period for about, 800 years?
This is the capital of the caliphate in Andalusia, in Al-Andalus, which was basically Muslim-occupied Spain. So what is the real reason behind that? We have to ask them, the promoters, but in history, that would be the actual meaning.
So if you were naming something Cordoba House in New York, what would be the message then for Muslims living here in the United States or even in the Middle East?
Well, maybe Muslims in the United States won't know the real meaning, but I'm sure that Islamists and maybe the jihadists living in the Middle East have already interpreted this as a sort of a return of the empire, which seems to be a little bit comical to most Americans, but it would be very serious to those engaged in that ideology.
I want to unpack some of the contradictory statements we've heard this week. Very confused commentary, quite honestly, coming even from Catholic circles.
Sure.
Some of my Catholic brethren in periodicals out there, I won't mention them because I know they'll get very upset, and they're tender. I'm not so tender-hearted or tender. They say that they're trying to compare this focus on Islam and what the motives might be behind the building of this mosque at a tender spot and a wound like Ground Zero. And they're saying this is akin to the opposition Catholics faced and the anti-Catholic bias that showed itself over the last century. Do you believe that's an appropriate analogy, or an accurate one?
I don't think so. This is anyway a very complex situation, the Cordoba crisis. You have two camps. One camp that says this is about religious freedom. They don't let us build a mosque, in any place in New York. And then the other camp which is saying, no, it's not about religious freedom. It's about the political message that you are sending. Now, is it really about religious persecution or suppression of freedom? Well, you have thousands of mosques across the United States. You have hundreds of mosques in New York City.
Yep.
You have mosques very, very close to the Qurtuba, building to be built. So why is it that only when we are discussing this issue, it becomes an issue of religious persecution? I think it is about politics. I think it's about the message that this specific building, tower actually, is sending.
There were reports this week, the Washington Examiner and other places was reporting, in Syria, the Minister of Education outlawed the full burqa at the universities there. And you'd say, well, why is a place like Syria, hardly a democratic regime, why are they outlawing the burqa? This is an Islamic area. They see it as a threat to the secular government, and they said, no, there's an Islam faith, and then there is political Islam. Describe the difference, and is that what we're seeing here surrounding this mosque controversy?
It is very ironic, Raymond, that in the Arab and Muslim world, people read it as to what it is. For example, they can see the difference between an Islamist political movement and Islam as a religion. That's in the Arab and Muslim world. Why is it that we want to do this discussion here and say, look at the ideological background of, let's say, the initiator of this movement or of the forces fundraising for it? Then we'll say it's about religious persecution. Syria, for example, the regime, which is not democratic at all, it's an authoritarian, dictatorial regime, they understood that what the Muslim Brotherhood or the Islamists and the Salafists, those very close to the jihadists, are trying to do on their campuses was basically to impose this fundamentalism, so they've acted.
I want to throw this out to callers. If you have a question about this mosque, 1-800-221-9460, or a statement, call us internationally, 205-271-2980, or email worldover@ewtn.com. Dr. Walid Phares is joining us. Doctor, what is the reaction in the Islamic world to all of this controversy and this proposed mosque? I mean, I've encountered some New Yorker Islamics and Muslims. They were not supportive of this.
Look, Americans in general, New Yorkers in particular, will be very surprised to learn that there is a lot of diversity and contradictions and divisions in the Arab and Muslim world with regard to this particular issue. Guess what? The funniest thing, if not the most dramatic thing, is the most supporting factions to this specific initiative are the Islamists and the jihadists and the Salafists and the Khomeinis. The most extreme factions are very happy. They're explaining it online, on Al Jazeera and elsewhere, that this is an advance for the caliphate, for politics. Then in the center, the moderates are saying, why are we doing this? Why are we just building that tower, not even a mosque, a tower next to 9/11? This is going to actually link further faith to politics. They don't want that. And thirdly, the most interesting reaction is coming from the very poor, the underdogs in the Muslim world. They're saying 20 million people in Pakistan, the victims of the floods, are hungry. And you bourgeois, you upper class, petrodollars are funding with $200 million a building in New York and not helping us. What are you doing for Darfur? What are you doing for the disasters that we have? What are you doing for Gaza? Why don't you build a mosque like that in Gaza? So there's a lot to talk about in the Arab and Muslim world.
Let's talk about Imam Abdul Rauf, the prime mover in this whole of this entire initiative, this Cordoba initiative, which is the name of the nonprofit that he created to fund this thing. He needs $200 million to develop this property. Where is he going to get that kind of money, and who is this man?
Well, first of all, the money we will know, because in America everything should be transparent. If this is donation from the Arab American Muslim community, that's fine. If other Americans as well were going to send money to any mosque, that'll be fine. But to have petrodollars, dozens of millions of petrodollars coming from the region, from the regimes which basically do not respect human rights or religious freedom, this is becoming a political question, a political crisis. Imagine millions of dollars coming from Saudi Arabia. There are no religious freedoms in Saudi Arabia. Millions of petrodollars coming potentially even from Iran, while religious communities are persecuted in Iran. So this will raise a very complex situation. Why are you bringing that enormous amount of money from regimes basically who do not respect religious freedom?
Dr. Phares, some are saying that this Imam Abdul Rauf, some people I met last week, hardly radical Muslims, say, you know, he's a good guy. He's trying to preach an American-style Islam. Is this possible? And what do they mean? Who is this man? I mean, he's represented the government. He was brought in by the Bush administration. The Obama administration just sent him on a world tour through the Middle East, preaching tolerance. How is his message received here as opposed to in the Arabic language and among Arabic audiences?
Look, Raymond, I look at the texts. I look at the statements, and I judge from there on. The Imam basically, when he addresses an American audience, when he's on national TV, and this is what the footage that we've seen, basically talks with a narrative that is very soft, that very smooth, that goes along with the American political culture. There is no doubt about that. But then he made statements. I mean, these are statements that are here, are in archive, you can Google them, in which he equated America to being a terrorist state, to being responsible for all the problems and bloodshed, including for 9/11. So when the promoter of this initiative accuses his own country, he's American, he's accusing America of being behind all that, you know, violence and terror, then we do have a problem with that.
There's that 2006 speech in English that has emerged, that may be an interview, and in it he says, America has more blood on its hands than Al-Qaeda.
Yes, when you say this about your own country, and then you claim that you are doing interfaith, and then you go to the region with our public dollars, and then make statements there about how wrong is America, then I think those who are opposing, the initiative have a point here.
Now, Mayor Bloomberg in New York and others are saying this is a test of religious tolerance, Dr. Phares, and to not only allow, embrace this mosque being built near 9/11, you're somehow intolerant. Is that a false argument?
It is, in the sense that, it's not just the framework, it's the substance. If those who have initiated the Cordoba-Cartapa initiative come and say, we are condemning Osama bin Laden as a terrorist, this is a fatwa against Al-Qaeda, we are going to dedicate a whole floor in that building to discuss the persecution, the religious persecution in the Middle East. We are going to be spending time to support the black Muslims of Darfur, to support the Muslim Kurds in Iraq, and so on and so forth. We will be building. We will be doing a fundraiser here on this Catholic network. But that is not the case. So it's not about religious freedom. It's about the political project, and we as Americans have the right to criticize or to endorse any political project.
And to question.
And to
ask
question.
questions.
Absolutely. That's our democracy.
Yeah. I want to go to the phones here. Richard is joining us from North Carolina. Go ahead, Richard. What's your question?
Good evening, folks. I have a question. If the Muslims are really trying to build bridges between themselves and us, why don't they make retributions to the injured people that were killed the families that were killed on 9/11? Thank you.
Interesting question. Now we have to say, every Islamic is not guilty or needing to make reparations to people. But what do you make of the caller's question?
Well, look, he has a point in raising the issue, but I think all Americans should be there to be in solidarity with the victims of 9/11. There is no religion, race, ethnicity at this point in time. The point I see, which he may have not developed, is basically, if you want to do interfaith, if you want to change the image that most Americans have had of the faith or of religion or anything else, what you do are positive things. You basically talk about the persecution that is happening out there, and then you show the American public that you are against that persecution. And there are so many. I mean, you talk about the freedom of Muslim women worldwide, and you say we want to stand with, women equality. You talk about Darfur, as I mentioned before. You talk about the minorities in the Arab and Muslim world. You say, well, the Copts of Egypt, the Christians of Egypt, they are persecuted, and we Muslim Americans, we want to stand by them. If you make those statements, you are creating interfaith, you are creating bridges between communities.
Some in New York suggested to me that this, far from being an act of tolerance and bringing people together, it actually is a provocative act that has further distanced this cause and Islam in some ways from the American people. Do you think that's true?
That's something that I have heard in the Arab and Muslim world more so than only in New York. There are voices coming from Indonesia, from Pakistan, from Egypt, from Lebanon who are saying, why are we connecting between, Islam as a religion and 9/11? That should have not been done. We are just helping the jihadists by doing this issue. So I think people in New York begin to understand that it's not about, the freedom of faith. We have it. It's the best protected in the world. It's about the political message at the end of the day.
I want you to talk for a moment about recently Chris Cuomo over at ABC News and others have raised, wait a minute, before you start being so critical, you need to study the Crusades and what Catholics did during this time period before you start throwing rocks at our Islamic brothers. Is that too an ill-informed view of history and comparing apples and oranges here?
Unfortunately, he has not really studied neither the Crusades nor what came after the Crusades or before the Crusades. What Mr. Cuomo needs to read are good books by Bernard Lewis and others talking about the previous 700 years of Arab Islamic conquest of the Caliphate that covered all these areas. The Crusades also were an Islamic, were a religious movement that tried to take back. They were
retaking lands that had been conquered.
But who are we to judge in the 21st century about religious wars and empires? Ask, actually, the Christian minorities in the Middle East, who were the actual native population of the land. They were driven out, they were occupied, and then the Crusades came basically to connect with them. We cannot today go back to history and say, look what the Crusades have done, or look what the Islamic empires have done. Today we have to talk about justice, about equality.
What do you think is the end game of these developers? What do they really want to accomplish? They're saying tolerance. They're saying an American style of Islam. You don't believe that?
I think it's beyond that. I think it is a political movement at the end of the day, and they have the right to do so. Don't misunderstand me. To be able to influence our foreign policy and our national security policies. Because if they establish that sort of Islamist, not Muslim, Islamist institution in New York, which will overshadow 9/11, they will impact our debate about 9/11. We're going to see this in the next few years. They're going to bring speakers who are going to be speaking against American foreign policy, who are going to be putting a lot of pressure against the measures that we take in national security. So at the end of the day, it is a political movement.
So there is a divide here in your mind between the faith Islam and political Islam. These are because some scholars I've spoken to said this is the problem with Islam, if you will, in that the governing system and the faith are intertwined. There is no separation. Sharia law governs all.
Well, look, this is not a secret. I mean, in Arabic, you'd understand it quickly. Islam dinun wa dawla. Islam is a religion and is a state. Now, it's up to Muslim Americans and Muslims around the world, and many are secular, to say, we are following the faith. We have nothing to do with the politics of it. If that is the case, then they will join the national community. Christians have done so in the past. I mean, the Vatican has reformed. The Protestants have had their own movement. Now, there are many Muslim moderates who would like to say we have to separate, but those who are fundamentalists do not.
Here's an email from Wayne in Hammond, Louisiana. It's my understanding that the mosque is located 2 blocks away from Ground Zero. How far would it have to be to not be offensive? Are there accommodations that could be made that you could accept?
Look, in my sense, it's not really about a geographical distance. It's an ideological distance. Having the same building, sending different message. As I said, on one floor, talk about the rights of Muslims and the rights of women in the Muslim world. And another floor, talk about how Islam should condemn Al-Qaeda. If that is the case, then that distance is not geographical. It's really ideological.
Is this a form of soft jihad?
Well, if
using the politics, the media, the whole controversy to kind of create space, if you will, for this political Islam?
This debate, which has already 65% of Americans...
72% oppose the building of this mosque.
I mean, and this division here in America, within the American Muslim community, in the Arab and Muslim world, this is not a joke. This is political. These are 2 camps. So definitely the camp which is behind the Cordoba-Qartaba initiative basically is trying to stimulate itself and to create the conditions for probably, if not direct jihad, but Islamism as a movement.
Where do you think this is going to end? Do you think they're going to build this mosque?
It all depends on how the United States Congress, the president, and the leaders of this nation are going to be connecting with their own public. If they decide to disconnect, the building may begin. But what happens is major political change as a result.
This week in Iraq, troops have been pulled out. Only 50,000 remain on the ground. They are now teaming up with local enforcement. What do you see as the prospects for the region?
Well, look, the Iranian leadership, the Al-Qaeda leadership have made it very clear. From the time our forces are going to go out, they're going to increase and escalate their attacks. That's what has been happening over the past few weeks. It's going to continue to escalate. I am not concerned about the capacity of the remaining 50,000 and the Iraqi army to strike back. What we need basically is to put a lot of pressure on the Iranian regime not to allow a deterioration of the situation in Iraq. The solution for Iraq is pressure on the Iranian regime.
And that's going to be hard to do now with the nuclear. This is a nuclear state now.
It is quasi-nuclear state, and if we don't stop it now, if we don't contain it now, we're going to have more than one. Already Sudan is calling for. The Turkey AKP Islamic Party is also calling for. So it is going to mushroom.
Oh, my gosh. And then what do you do?
And then we have a big trouble. And then it would be up again to America at the 3rd time or 4th time in less than a century to go and try to solve the problem. It's much better to solve it when it's at its early stage. Remember, before World War II, it would have been much better to stop Nazism in the 20s and the 30s
and to wait until the 40s.
Exactly.
Yeah. Talk to us for a moment about Afghanistan and the type of fighting that we're seeing there. This doesn't seem to be getting any better. The longer we stay there, it seems to just... the mission seems to be muddled at this point because of the increasing attacks upon the troops and the populace.
Look, Raymond, it's not about how much we're going to fight. It's how many schools we are going to be building for how many kids who are a 10-year-old ready to absorb the world. I always gave my briefing to Congress beginning by saying, those who were 10 years old on 9/11 or in 2001 when we defeated the Taliban are today 18-year-old, 19-year-old. These are the new soldiers. These are the new teachers. What have we done? How have we supported their moms and teachers so that they are not brainwashed by the Taliban? It's a war of ideas at the end of the day. We could be fighting for a very long time as long as we don't help in the establishment of a new generation of Afghani who will be anti-Taliban. It's going to continue like that.
But Dr. Phares, how do you do that? When you look at Iraq, we built schools all over the place. They won't send their children to the schools. From what I'm hearing on the ground, because the natives say, wait a minute, I'm a little suspect of this. Why should I send my child to this Western school over here?
Well, because we pay the contractors and the subcontractors, and we build those beautiful highways and I-95s in the desert and those schools. We don't pay attention that we have not engaged the teachers. In Afghanistan or in Iraq, there were thousands of teachers. Who has a contact with the kids from 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. till 5 p.m.? A teacher. What's our policy with the teacher? Nothing. With the moms? Nothing.
We have a caller, Dr. Amina. She is a Muslim. Go ahead, doctor. What's your question or your comment?
Good evening, viewers. I was just watching your show, and I believe whatever the doctor and you said, it's right. I'm a Muslim. I'm from Pakistan, and I'm as religious as the next person. But I feel that there's really no need to have a mosque at ground zero because, we're constantly reminding the Christians or the Americans that it was basically Muslim extremists who did this to you, and your victims or the families that you've lost. It's a constant reminder. So I think Allah says that you can pray anywhere, as long as your intention is to pray to Allah. So I don't think we need a constant reminder to have that mosque right there. I mean, America is really tolerant. We can have a mosque anywhere. And Muslims have been really living comfortably in the U.S. So having a mosque anywhere else would be right. And I think that the Americans are within their rights to protest that we should have a mosque at the ground zero.
Doctor,
so as a Muslim and as a Pakistani, I would say that I support the Americans in not having a mosque at ground zero.
Do you consider this a provocative gesture by those who are advancing this initiative?
Yes, I think so, because, we're just trying to make it into a political mess or to, create animosity between Americans and the Muslim Americans. So I feel that, no, there's really no need. Muslims can pray 5 times a day anywhere they want. And the ground zero, for God's sake, let it be as it is. You have a monument there. If you want to, pray for the victims, sure. But you can pray anywhere else. And why make it into this political scene where, we're having a controversy and we're trying to, show that, we're Muslims and we need to pray right there? That's wrong.
Very good. Thank you for the call. Very interesting call. And again, this is the kind of conversation and tolerance, by the way. I mean, you have a Catholic network and a Muslim calling in. This is what we should be, the kind of dialogue we should be having.
It raises really 2 points, and I'm very happy that she had access and she was heard by millions of Catholics and Americans. Number one is that there is a debate within the American Muslim community, and that debate is about diversity. The other thing, she's Pakistanis. You know how many mosques have been destroyed in Pakistan by the extremists? $200 million? Why don't they rebuild those mosques in Pakistan instead of focusing on this issue, which means it is really political at the end of the day?
Very interesting. Thank you for your perspective. It really has enlightened all of us and certainly this host. Dr. Walid Phares, thank you so much. For more on Dr. Walid and his Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, visit defenddemocracy.org. One word, defenddemocracy.org. Before we go, I want to update you on a story we covered last week. Catholic League President Bill Donahue was with us to talk about the Mother Teresa rally he organized Thursday in New York City. It was a protest at the Empire State Building whose management had refused to honor Mother Teresa on her centenary. I was in the Big Apple this week, and here's the update. We're on 34th Street, where hundreds are gathered to protest the decision by the Empire State Building to deny an honor to Mother Teresa. Bill Donahue of the Catholic League requested that the famous building be lit blue and white to honor Mother Teresa's 100th birthday. Well, Anthony Malkin, the owner of the Empire State Building, and the leadership here decided that they would deny that request. So hundreds have turned out to protest the decision. And here's what they're saying.
Very disappointing that they couldn't just honor this woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, was honored by presidents and dignitaries all over the world for her humanitarian efforts, not particularly because she was a Catholic.
You know what? I think it might change the minds of the people that are walking past the Empire State Building more than anything. And if it touches just a couple people that are walking by and asking why they're all crowded here and they learn something about Mother Teresa, it's a success then.
I grew up in a village from Bangladesh, and one of the Mother Teresa center was in my village. And he worked for the poor and very needy people. So she doesn't represent a religion. She represents all the poor people. And I came here to make the awareness of the American people and everybody that what she did for the poor people, so the other people know who is Mother Teresa and they can do the same thing for like her.
Mother Teresa was not just a great humanitarian, she was a woman with enormous courage.
To you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mother Teresa.
Happy birthday to you. Mother Teresa, a simple, pious, extraordinary individual who helped the helpless, who spoke for the people who couldn't speak for themselves. She is denied being honored here. However, they did find time to honor Bastille Day, Frank Sinatra's birthday, Fay Ray, the Westminster Dog Show, the Knicks, the Rangers, the Belmont Stakes, the U.S. Open, the Rutgers women's basketball team, Microsoft Windows 95, the end of Ramadan, Mariah Carey, People's Republic of China, and the home release of The Simpsons video. But they could find time for Mother Teresa.
I never saw such a disgusting injustice in my life. I never saw anything so offensive. To insult this woman, who's the greatest woman of our time, of our lives. Nobody ever knew anybody as fantastic a human being as Mother Teresa. What way does she offend them? In what way does she disturb them? In what way could you decide that because she's the greatest humanitarian, she should be mentioned? The only person that wouldn't honor her is a sadist or a murderer. You have to be sick and low, and you have to be out of your mind not to be thrilled to have an opportunity to honor her.
Did you accomplish what you wanted to?
Oh, I think so. As a matter of fact, I think we accomplished it earlier over the summer when public sentiment came wildly on our side from people who are not even Catholic. I mean, quite frankly, this is the icing on the cake. It's a big night for us. It's an event. We have an all-star cast. But I think the PR battle was won over the summer when Anthony Malkin refused to do what was prudent in his own interest. What he's doing is irrational. He is now known as the anti-Mother Teresa person in New York City. That's not a smart thing to do.
Do you think he'll ever light this building blue and white as a result of this?
No, I do not. And what the irony is that he's going to light it up tonight, different colors for women's equality. That's fine with me. It's a noble cause. But look at the irony. You're not saying yes to Mother Teresa, who towers over every woman and man who ever lived, practically, and yet you're going to celebrate women's equality? See, this proves what the left is all about. They love the masses and the abstract. It's just the people they hate.
Happy birthday, Mother Teresa. Happy birthday to you. Wait for us.
Well, there it is, and that's all the time we have. Until next week, you can find updates and the occasional commentary by following me on Twitter at twitter.com. By the way, I posted on my Facebook fan page my favorite protester at that rally. You need to see this guy. Those of you who follow me will also get previews of upcoming programs and additional news. And you can always find me at RaymondArroyo.com. The prayers and personal devotions of Mother Angelica and the entire Mother Angelica collection are available through the EWTN Religious Catalog and at bookstores everywhere. And remember, next week, September, the world over moves to Thursday nights at 8 p.m. live. Until next week, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye now, and bye-bye to New Orleans. Love you all.